Good morning. It's August the 25th. Raining again. I've mentioned in previous videos that, gosh, we've got a lot of rain this year. I mean, I remember in a couple week period we had 8 inches about a month ago. So the ground is pretty well saturated, but fortunately, it was far enough back and spread out enough recently when the figs were getting ripe that it didn't affect my figs. I'm just getting a wonderful, wonderful harvest this year. Now, these are my in 7A in New Jersey. These are one of my Peter's honey trees. I have 2 very nice trees. And I'm going to see if I can open this up for you. I just want you to see how this particular strain of Peter's honey has brought me so much joy. Oh, let me see if I can get this darn thing. There we go. It's the best I can do. But isn't that beautiful? Well, the reason why I'm making this video, and it's going to be a short one, is because my last video, which is, the title was Another Best Fig Year Ever, just a few days ago, I mentioned when I picked up one of the ripe LSU Tiger figs, I believe I picked one. I mentioned it was LSU. Debbie had it in her hand, but I didn't say Tiger, so a couple of people wanted to know, what was that? Hold on a second. Let me take a bite of this. I wish that every one of you figsters out there could take a bite of this fig, because then you would know why I rave about it. It's got traces of vanilla. I'm going to reiterate just how good. And look at it. Another one of my terms. It is certainly glisteningly delicious. Look at it. Isn't it beautiful? I love it. You know, part of my fascination for these other than, say, your typical 60, 70, or maybe more Mount Etna types, which people like to describe, and I don't, as berry figs. They're not berry figs, they're figs. I never tasted a raspberry that tastes like a fig. Likewise, I've never tasted a fig that tastes like a raspberry. And I've never tasted a strawberry that tastes like a fig. And likewise, I've never tasted a fig that tastes like a strawberry. Just one of my pet peeves. But I understand that for want of a better description, we figsters try to use some of these terms that may or may not be appropriate, or as appropriate as we may wish them to be. And I understand, and so I therefore have a little bit of tolerance for the process, but not much. A fig's a fig. But I was saying, one of the reasons why I have a fascination for these other than berry type figs is because I get so bored. You know, these are figs that when I was a child growing up in an Italian family 55 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, okay, we didn't have these interesting varieties. We did not have the LSU varieties. We did not have Peter's honey. We did not have Celeste. We certainly didn't have all the crosses, and we didn't have any of the crosses from Ira Condit back in the 50s and 60s, early 60s. We didn't have improved Celeste. We didn't have any of the wonderful varieties that now we have come to love. The LSU varieties, LSU Purple, Champagne, LSU Tiger. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And then there's Excel from going back to the Ira Condit days. And I love the fact that those figs were introduced into the fig community and the fig world at large. And I love the fact that it has brought in a tremendous amount of variation and variety. And these are figs that are reliable and dependable and that I can even grow in my harsh climate. So, am I excited about these variations? Absolutely. Because when I grew up, there was no such thing. I mean, we had the Italian honey, and we had the English fig, certainly, Brunswick, which was interesting, and it was made originally famous by D'Aquitaine, one of my most favorite people in history. He wrote the first gardening book ever, the King's Gardener, King Louis XIV. And he was brilliant. I read all of his original notes that were so difficult to get some 25 years ago. I mean, they were so scarce. I had to comb the whole country to find them, and then I had to painstakingly copy them. It's a long story. I would like to make a video about it. But he grew Brunswick, and he was the inventor of the first container figs. He invented the King's Gardener. Look it up. King Louis XIV. I believe it was the 14th, yeah. And he was commissioned by the King of France to be the King's Gardener, and he was radiantly brilliant. And he invented the first container fig. Yes, he invented the first greenhouse, which was made by crude glass put together. And he was able to serve the king figs all winter long. And one of the figs that he liked very much was Brunswick. And we grew Brunswick when I was young. And that's the fig that, in this climate, if it's not a controlled environment, does swell up and crack and rot, in very wet, inclement weather. But getting back to these variations, I love tasting different types of figs. I get bored with the same old figs. That doesn't mean I take away from them, but I love the 50, 60, 70 named Mount Etna types that are all essentially the same, and don't be taken in by that. Just focus in on a couple I've recommended, some, and other people have. I mean, if you know you have a reliable source and they tell you it's a good Mount Etna and they've tested a whole bunch of them, go by their recommendation and get one or two types, and that's it. Stop. Don't keep buying 10 different varieties, 20 varieties, because they're not varieties. They're just variants. They're variations. Don't do it. I've talked about this so many times. Don't do it. Don't be beguiled. Don't be fooled. Don't be misled. And I'm not saying it's intentional necessarily. A lot of the people selling these don't even realize that. But they are essentially the same fig. So get a good one like Malta Black and hang in there. But I'm not in any way casting aspersions towards that group of Mount Etna types, the hardy Chicago types. I call hardy Chicago. But I'm just trying to offer all of you out there an intrigue, an interesting concept where you can meander away from the so-called berry figs, oh God, and enjoy some of the other figs and some of these other so-called groups that we've made up, like the honey figs and the sugar figs and this kind of thing. Well, you know what? They're just names that we made up. Because in every group, there are some really excellent representations. I don't care how you categorize them or group them. It's like music. Okay, everyone will say, not everyone, but a lot of people say, well, I don't like classical music, and I don't like this, and I like country, and I like rock. Well, wait a minute. If someone asks me what kind of music I like, I say I like it all. Because I have a very eclectic musical taste. And why do I say that? Do I generally like classical music? Not generally, no. But I know that there are some pieces in the classical collection of music that I absolutely love to listen to. I don't like it all, but I like certain pieces. I don't like country western or whatever it's called in general, but there are some songs I love very much. They're very great. They're good. And I'm not generally a rock or a jazz guy, but there are some jazz pieces that I just absolutely adore. And there are some fig varieties in a classification, say honey figs, that I absolutely adore too. I don't necessarily like them all or love them all. I appreciate all figs. But I try not to be so narrowly selective, okay? I try to broaden my horizons and my taste. And I allow them to vary and wander and explore everywhere, whatever the subject is, from the astronomy, from astrophysics, down to anything that's the most tiniest little organisms that we can observe under a microscope and everything in between. I'm curious about it. From art and music and, yes, growing things in my hobby. And I try not to be so restrictive. I don't impose these self-restrictions. And I don't want you to either. That's my point. But let's get back to the real reason why I filmed this video today. I didn't mention the LSU Tiger, as I said. Let me put this down. I'm going to give this one to Debbie. And I'll put it in a safe place where I don't step on it. But this was the fig that Debbie had in her hand. They're beautiful, aren't they? Look at that. It's a very large fig. A very, very prolific, delicious, sweet, tasty fig. Again, it's a representation of that variety, the variety point. And look how many are getting ripe, how beautiful they are. Look. Aren't they wonderful? Look at that. It just rained. There's water all over the place. That's okay. That's nature. They're not hurting my figs because it's very shallow water. Not real heavy. Overnight. It's raining now a little. But aren't they beautiful? Look at that. LSU Tiger. I've recommended it before. It's a very good fig. Let's take one. We could take one. I'll try to bite my way into this. Let me bite my way into this. There we go. There. LSU Tiger. Take a bite. Definitely a unique fig. Very unlike other figs. It's sweet. There's an aftertaste of I don't know how to describe it. It's unique. It's very good. It's very high quality. It's a good fig. And it's tough. You can see it's disease free. Look how prolific it is. Look at all the unripened figs that will be forthcoming soon. As they come into fruition, you see them swelling at different stages. You see that there's a lot of ripe figs here. Here's another that's good and ripe. I'll tear this one open too. Yeah. That's the color, typically. Sort of in between. Not unlike my strains of Celeste. Some of my strains of Celeste are a little redder inside. But this is a very tasty. I love the skin. It's thick, but I like thick-skinned. Some people don't. I like thick-skinned figs that are sweet and that the flavor matches and is in harmony with the flesh. And this is one of those. The skin accentuates the flavor. Let's walk around to the other side. Let's take another look at it. It's a very nice sized fig tree. with lots and lots and lots of figs. Beautiful figs. So I wanted to come back and show you this variety in more detail, since I mentioned it in my last video but neglected to call it Tiger. I just said it was LSU. Well, there's one that's on the ground that's I didn't notice. Oh gosh, a big ripe fig. Hot diggity. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful? I'll bring this one into Debbie. This is a beautiful fig. I'm going to put this down with the Peter's honey. Okay. I got some more to pick that are certainly ripe enough to bring into the house. So I hope you enjoyed your visit, and I hope not too long presentation on some of these subjects that I like to speak about from time to time. I'm enjoying myself. I would like to report to you. Here's something too quick. Look how wonderful this is. You can see that the bottom figs are coming to fruition or ripe, and then they're coming right up the new growth. Look at that new growth, and at all different various stages of maturation, right on up to the top. All of these figs will get ripe this season. So this is a wonderful tree. I like it. Quickly, my Alma that I told you wasn't producing is still not producing. It's my latest fig in my collection, my in-ground collection. And it's very prolific, my Alma. But so far, not one ripe fig, but that's okay. And any day, they'll start to swell. And I like staggering, and we talked about that. I'm not going to go and look at the other fig trees. I promise to keep this down, but I have so many Ronde Bordeaux and other figs now. I just want to mention this one last thing. Last night I had something happen that was the first time ever happened, and it's kind of sad. So I want to tell you about it. I should go over and show it to you. Should I? I don't know. I better not. Maybe I'll make another video. But a raccoon, I think it was a raccoon, I don't know for sure, but I believe a raccoon got into my greenhouse, which is completely open, so it's not really serving as a greenhouse. I'm just trying to keep my container figs out of the weather, and out of the wind keeps knocking them down. And I got tired of moving them in and out, so I just left them there the last couple of weeks. And a raccoon got in there last night and broke some of the branches. It was a heavy creature because he broke my branches and he got up in my trees. He didn't do a tremendous amount of damage, and I was going to cut them down drastically at the end of the harvest. Anyway, this year I'm going to. But he took a bite out of this fig. He ate this fig, and then he took a bite out of another fig, and another fig, and another fig, and another. He must have. He ate about. I saw where he'd eaten, because I was going to get my Black Madeira ripe, and I've been eating them, and my Italian 258s, and I was going back there this morning to get Debbie breakfast. I said, let me go out and get some of these figs. And yesterday I could have picked them because they were almost perfect. But remember what I told you. The difference of a day makes what would ordinarily be a 10, if we use that as a hypothetical, it would make it, like, say, a 7 or an 8 instead of a 10. So why pick a 7 when you could pick a 10? So I went out there, and I was so enthusiastic. Oh, I was so excited. You know, I said, I'm going to bring in some delicious Preto and Black Madeira and Italian 258 and some, I still have some Smiths, although they produce so many figs already. And Debbie loves Smith too. But I was so disappointed, sourly disappointed, when I went into the greenhouse to see that a creature had gained access easily through the open doors and wreaked havoc on my collection in terms of taking a bite out of so many figs and then leaving them, sometimes right on the branch. Others were broken. Others branches, the whole branch is snapped off from their weight, from the weight of the creature. So now I'm going to have to use a habit heart trap and try to catch this creature and then remove it to another safe location. But I just thought I'd report that. These things happen as a grower. Anyone who lives out in the country knows about these things, these events that take place. There's really very little control that we have over it. Thanks again for visiting. I hope you enjoyed your visit. I hope you're having a wonderful harvest as I am. It's already well into August, and it won't be long until we'll be already in September, which is hard for me to accept. But this one's so ripe, and I'm going to pick this one and take it into Debbie. But it was a wonderful, wonderful season, both in my... I've got 3 locations actually where I'm growing figs, and 2 that I film frequently. And in every place, it just was a wonderful, bountiful year for the harvest of many varieties, and they were all spared. Even though we had lots of rain, it just worked out to where it wasn't at the worst time, and it didn't coincide with the largest number of figs that came into fruition at the moment. So I am grateful, very grateful for the harvest. And Debbie and I were able to make wonderful preserves and give some to our friends and relatives and store some for ourselves for over the winter. And she made a wonderful fig bread. Oh my goodness, I should just put this on pause and show you. You know what? I'll do that. Even though it's not a complete loaf, because we gave loaves away and we've been eating on the... I want to show you the color and the texture, if she doesn't scout me for suggesting it. Let me grab these figs and bring them in, and I'll put you on pause for a second if you'd like to see how beautiful her fig bread is. And it was so spectacularly delicious. Hold on. Okay, I'm just responding here, Deb, to an impromptu suggestion to my viewers and subscribers about just quickly getting your fig bread in this video. It was just out of this world. And isn't that a beautiful color? It's all natural, no artificial ingredients. Look at this. Isn't it beautiful? Can you cut it? Just cut a little, cut a slice of that. And I brought her in, as I promised. Here's a Peter's honey for you.
Oh, good.
I know how much you love that Peter's honey. And I brought you some of these Tigers, Deb. They're good too. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow, look at that. Look at the color, the natural color of these figs. Now, these were mostly made, this was a mixture. What were they, Deb? It was mostly Celeste.
It was a mixture of all the figs.
It was a mixture, and there was
Celeste.
Chicago.
Yeah, the Celeste, okay. This type, this type, it was everything.
It was the Hardy Chicago types, and
everything that was extra ripe.
That
we didn't eat.
Ronde Bordeaux. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I'm looking in there, I remember seeing, there were even some working things in there. It was a mixture. Yeah, it was a good mixture.
Peter's honey's delicious.
Yeah, isn't that good?
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to get this. Look at this. And it's heavy and moist. Now, yesterday, Debbie put this in the toaster, and we each had a big piece. And then
it tastes delicious toasted.
Oh, God. It was so good. I mean, I'm telling you, it was delicious. And she toasted it, and then we melted butter on the top. Oh, it was just wonderful. Wait a minute. I just like the color of her fig bread. Now she's tapping me in the arm saying, pull it back, Lou. Don't be too eccentric. Deb, you know I'm eccentric. Why even bother?
I just don't want your hands all over the bread. Put your hands all over the bread.
Oh, put my hands all over the... Oh, that was it. Oh, okay. Well, no one else is going to eat this bread but us.
I know.
Who else is going to eat it? We already give it to everybody. Okay, so thank you very much. Good day. Don't touch the bread. Gustav. Don't touch the bread.
You only touch the slice you're gonna eat.
Bye.